you spoke about AI tools for this purpose. How do these AI tools compare with traditional differentiation strategies? So many tools are available, and for someone who does not understand AI very deeply, it's very difficult to pick one.
That is so true. And you know what else, Mo? There's a lot of hesitation. I've even read about where districts are banning, the whole notion of using AI.
If there is one thing you would suggest school leaders should start today, what would that be? Hi everyone, my name is Munawar Khan and I welcome you to another podcast episode of Ctrl Ed, where we discuss AI, technology and education. And we hear from the top voices from all around the world who are absolutely doing phenomenal job when it comes to education and integration of technology in education. Personalization. Personalization is a buzzword, but it is also a very, very powerful concept. Especially in the Gen AI era, personalization is not only crucial, but it is also very easier to apply comparatively. But are the school leaders and the teachers ready for it? To discuss exactly that, we have a very special guest today, Vickie Echols, who is not only experienced with school leadership training and transformation, but also understands the AI integration and its importance. So, Vickie, thank you very much for joining, and I welcome you to today's podcast.
Thank you, Mo. It's an honor to be here. I'm glad that we can add voices to this new revolution, these changes in education.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And yes, it is absolutely needed. It's a new thing, and we all are exploring it actually. And you know, technology experts or people who are working in the industry, they're not enough. We need basically, it's a teamwork. So if we talk about AI in education, then of course one part is AI, but the other more important part is education. So we need educationists joining on this cause and creating more awareness and education for sure.
Totally agree.
Thank you. Okay, Vickie. So before we actually dive into the topic of AI specifically, what do you think about personalization in education? What does personalization, especially in post-GenAI era, mean to you?
Okay, thank you for that question. And let me also begin by saying that welcome to the audience. I'm glad to be part of a collegial discussion around education and how these changes are happening. I've been in the classroom, mainly in the elementary levels and in the middle school, but I also worked with some high school students as a communication director, and then I became a principal, mainly in the elementary levels. But I found that personalization was critical in getting individuals to pay attention and to find relevance, right? That to know that this applies to me and this is something I can do and lean in. And, and it's true for students and for adults. I know in working with teachers, if I'm sitting in a faculty meeting and this has nothing to do with me, or I don't have any idea why I'm needing to navigate through this information, it's very disarming, right? We just have to or it's distressing rather. It's just something that we want to be able to personalize so that we can find relevance. And AI has that ability to help us really fine tune the journey and to get to the point and to find ways that really make a difference for any learner of any age. And so I'm glad this is a topic you're leaning in.
Thank you very much, Vickie. So what's the real value of AI-assisted personalization? I know personalization itself is not a new topic. Teachers have been using differentiation strategies for a long time. Mm-hmm. And it is not only like, even that is not recent. So if we look at history, teachers always, of course, want them to be really good for the students, very helpful. And for that, of course, they need to personalize the lessons. What has changed? Why AI assisted personalization is important?
Well, I think we've always known that if you could differentiate, if you could give students what they need in the real time in that moment, it speeds the process up. They can catch on to the concept much better and more accurately. I remember as a teacher setting up stations where I would try to level the materials and get each of those questions queued up for their particular grade level. Even though you're teaching a second grade classroom, it does not guarantee everyone reads at that level, right? So you've got to have those readability scales ready to go. And that's one thing that AI can do so well, and that is adapt information to match the need of the child and so fast. I mean, that's what really was amazing to me when I started playing with it. It just is so quick. And, I mean, as teachers, we're dedicated to trying to reach every student, but it's exhausting when you try to do that by yourself. And so with this tool, it definitely saves time. And that's what interested me in exploring this for educators, because time is such a valuable aspect of our work, but we don't have enough of it. We're always needing to leave before everything's done, and trying not to take things home, but to really target the need in the amount of time we have. And AI speeds the process up so much and really helps give us great suggestions to make a difference for individual students. And I want to emphasize the word suggestions. It's not an end-all perfect tool. It does make mistakes. It can hallucinate, as they say. So
Absolutely.
It does require human intelligence to take a look at what suggestions are offered and whether or not they make sense. And using your education and your ability to decipher what would work for the child, you've got to be able to do that. It's not going to replace teachers. There's no way that this is going to take jobs away. It will just help our jobs and help us to do a better job. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And
Yeah.
so I have a follow-up question. So you spoke about AI tools for this purpose. How do these AI tools compare with traditional differentiation strategies?
Well, when I think of traditional strategies, I look at collecting all those resources and researching options, with and keeping a storage of different sets of things that can apply to that particular situation. And essentially AI has it all encapsulated, right? And it depends on how you approach it in the classroom and what your district or your campus offers. But I think exploring the different tools, because there are many. I think you have one that is a tool, and there's Khan Academy. There's a lot of no name association. Is that your uncle?
These are absolutely fine. You can share any tool, because again, it is basically to help educators around the world. And absolutely, please feel free to use any examples as you like.
Right. Well, I think that's the job of a campus or a district, to really customize what tools they're going to use. But my experience, I'll just be transparent, is using the generic ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, those that are available in the marketplace that are either free or, what I've done is just I've contributed to the higher levels to get a better response, right? And that's the extent of my experience. But I would definitely say that, you started this podcast by saying you've got to have a team. So I hope those of your listeners are thinking about or are already participating in a team that's researching these options. Because it's going to take some time to think about what it is you want to bring into the classroom. And my point in writing my book was, it's time to learn AI for yourself and learn how to personalize this tool as a way to help your own work as an educator in managing a classroom, managing a campus as a
Right.
principal or a dean, or even managing a district, a collection of schools. So that's really where my expertise lies.
Okay. Okay. Great. And I wish the Khan Academy thing was true, but
Yeah,
um,
right.
they're doing an amazing job, by the way, and they actually started integrating AI long time back. I
Yeah,
remember watching one of his TEDx talks. I guess it was about 10, 12 years ago. And of course, generative AI was nowhere to be seen at that time, or at least generative AI in the form we actually see, right? So
mm,
Chat GPT and whatnot.
right.
And they were actually talking about something similar for education at that point in time. So it was very visionary for sure. Okay, um, AI tools, there's so many. Now, I know your experience is mostly with the school leaders. Do you hear questions that represent their confusion on which tool to choose and how to pick an AI tool? Because I guess at this point in time, it is becoming very saturated, and
Mm.
so many tools are available. And for someone who does not understand AI very deeply, it's very difficult to pick one.
That is so true. And you know what else, Mo? There's a lot of hesitation. I've even
Okay.
read about where districts are banning, the whole notion of using AI in a
Oh,
school.
really?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
and that to me is not helpful because the world is changing, and if we don't get ahead of it and learn it, it will be difficult to integrate later. So yeah, mindsets are important for school leaders, and I would say my advice is to start small. That's why I wrote the book, to give people comfort level of learning how to navigate on the tool. Some of your listeners may be very advanced already doing this, fine, but if you haven't jumped in and just tried it for yourself, that's the place to start, right? With the low risk, like generating an agenda for a meeting, right? Or just a communication to a parent. They've written you an email and you've sketched out what you want to say. Well, the AI tool can definitely give you suggestions for how to improve the email with the
right.
tone. So I had one teacher tell me that she was always having difficulty writing her emails without having a tone that was came across a little bit too sharp, too pointed and too aggressive. And she asked the chatbot to give her adapt it to a more
All right.
friendlier,
Right.
yes, or while staying professional.
Right.
And she was just like, "Oh yeah, this is much better." And it was received, in a way that was much better. So those are small ways to step in.
Right.
But secondly, I'd say you've got to have a team of people who are interested in learning. Just like at the A initiative, I mean, we're always looking, school's always changing the way we do things. But if you have a team to help navigate that process, and everyone trusts that we're going to be researching, reporting back, learning together, that's where the real success will happen.
Right.
I'd also say emphasize alignment with what you're already doing. You know, one of the worst things we can do is keep adding layers and layers of things to learn. We just have a capacity, it's as humans, of what to learn. So we've
Right.
got to emphasize, how does this fit with what we're trying to accomplish as a goal? And just incrementally add those supports so that it can make sense that we're jumping in. And then I would say you've got to address the fear, the resistance, the hesitance, and put facts out there about what AI can do, and also examples, and bring up, in these team meetings or in these collaborative sessions, ways that you can work together with this tool. And I address five of these areas in my book. I think these five hit at these topics hit at the things that are common among educators. I'll give them to you briefly, like collaborative decision making. We want to be able to make decisions with a group, with a team, and that can sometimes be difficult. AI can help with that, right? But how are you going to integrate AI can also be part of what you ask AI to help you do. Because I mean, it's reality. 64. I read a statistic that said like 64% of educators are really unsure about how AI is going to impact what they do. Right. So that's a high percentage, and we've just got to move slowly, build trust, and build in some common sense professional learning. Like overlapping it with something else where AI is incorporated, not just a standalone. I had a district ask me about doing an AI session and professional learning session, first day back to school. And I said, I don't think so. The first day, a teacher is not thinking about what can I learn new. They want to get their classroom ready. They want to work.
Right.
We want to get structured, organized, get the name tags out, the nuts and bolts, and throwing that into the mix on the first day back might be interesting to some, but not very many. And then I would say, you can use it to help you with family and community, because once you start introducing this new tool, parents need to be informed too, right? Families need to feel safe that this is not some weird thing that's coming up, and they've got to be involved. Yeah.
I guess there's a big fear when it comes to privacy, especially for children.
Absolutely.
And their information, because and honestly speaking, I also feel bad sometimes that they really don't have any say at this point in time. Like they don't even know what's happening. I'm talking about the students, the learners. So their data may be being used indirectly with some of these AI or AI in education platforms or tools without their knowledge at all. So I completely agree that there has to be trust building, and there has to be regulation, of course, on what can be and what cannot be done. You also mentioned some districts banning the use of AI. So that is very interesting for me, because like you're from Dallas, Texas. That's in the USA. Of course, AI is being driven in the USA, and then we see some countries mandating AI in education. For example, UAE, China. There are a couple of European countries as well. I guess France is one of them. So, what type of disparity do you see in coming days because of this?
That is such a true question. And I think equity and access are going to be some very important topics to address as policy leaders, and inviting people to safely become aware of what this new tool will do. Because really, inclusivity, we can't broaden the digital divide any more than it's just really critical to prioritize. And I think what we've got to do is emphasize that when we're using these tools, we're not diminishing human agency. We've got to still be highly involved in deciding, what is used and what is. Humans are going to make the final call, right? That's what we've got to just remember. It's not a replacement.
Absolutely.
But I think also what happens is you've got to work with leaders to co-create policy and norms, and not just mandate and hop down. There are some safety features, like you just mentioned. Data privacy is critical. These machines do review everything you put in, and because they're trying to improve their quality of their product, but that means you've got to de-identify any sort of student identification or adult, for that matter. And you've got to continually audit, right? Especially for bias, because whoever's created these tools has a natural bias, and we've got to be able to detect what it is that and be critically aware, right? To check for any kind of bias toward a particular type of experience or culture, and really promote responsiveness to this differences, how AI can really build bridges across backgrounds and languages. The translation, for instance, is a very useful tool in trying to help us get better at communicating across different types of experiences, and then thinking systemically, right? Just looking at how equity isn't just about access, it's really about thoughtful, intentional integration, right? And then also consistently reflecting, is this working? How's this going? Essentially, it's just keeping everyone informed as much as possible. I think it's a very powerful tool if used well, but we have to be aware of how to, to safeguard and put those guardrails up.
Absolutely. And yes, you actually raised a very important point. So would you basically include personalization as a part and parcel of this AI integration? Or do you think AI and personalization are a little, similar but separate topics?
Right. That when I used examples in the book, I would say you have to be generalizing about the type of person that you're personalizing. It's not there you can have a name. You can't, you could say an average third grader who has been diagnosed with a disability in reading needs to have leveled materials. And the curriculum has this material, and I need the AI to convert it to a lower level reading. I've mentioned no names. I've mentioned, any kind of personalizing information about the individual. But what I'm doing is to use the word personalized just in the term of how the content changes, the content of the reading level. And let's talk about a teacher and leadership, since that's in my book as well. If a principal is going into your classroom and they're doing an evaluation, trying to give you feedback about how your teaching strategies are working with the students, right? She's taking notes, she's giving some observations, writing down the goals that you've set prior to the meeting and trying to see if you're meeting those goals. And all of that is written into some kind of an evaluation format, right? So now the principal's job is to personalize that information in a way that is received by the teacher as something that's useful and not threatening. That is an adult to an adult personalization example. I assume you could see it that way. I'm not going to give everybody a blanket checklist. I'm going to really try to help your craft improve. That's the role as a principal that I want to do. So AI can help tremendously in that process. And I write the prompts out and give them I'll give you exact examples and with brackets to incorporate your feedback. Again, extracting anything that's information that's identifying of an individual, but keeping it very, very specific to that situation. And it can write up a list of questions that can be used in the post conference with the teacher to get the conversation very relevant, to really make it useful. And the teacher can walk out going, well, that really helped, But, something else I've noticed in coming across with some leaders, some principals, and have admitted that they just don't have the listening skills. Some are not aware they don't have the listening skills. They want to talk the whole time, right? But really, the best conferences are when teachers have a chance to have an equal or more opportunity to talk, right? Do you agree with that? So AI can help a leader become a better listener by giving them a professional interaction, just by getting a prompt, like, give me some ideas about how to be a better listener. That's a simple prompt. I write a much more detailed one in the book, but it really it's a conversation with a machine that gives very interesting responses based on research and content out in the world. So you've got a ton of books that are already put in, or authors or specialists, and they're going to give you feedback. And let's say you want something a little bit more, you just add to the conversation in the feed. And it really opens up such a great opportunity to learn more for yourself. So you can personalize for yourself, you can personalize for another adult, you can personalize for a student. It's really an interesting tool that way.
That is a very interesting use case. And I guess it could help a lot, because that's true. cannot be any better listener than an AI bot, right? So,
It's true, and and even polite, right? Thank you
right.
for that. It's so interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just reading somewhere that all of these phrases, please, and because they are more used for polite conversation, but they're not the actual instructions. So these words or tokens, they're causing millions of dollars to the LLM models. But at the same time, they're really glad that it is happening because it also suggests there is that trust and respect between the human and machine, which is really good and needed, I guess.
It
Um,
is, unless you start to believe this machine is human. That is something I've been listening to
right,
for teenagers. You know,
right,
there's a
yeah,
safeguard there that we've got to help emphasize that it
right,
is a machine, because they start to make blur the lines.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, um, Again, a very good point because quite honestly, there are a few startups that are exactly working on that. So virtual relationships with AI bots. Uh, Personally, I don't know how would that help. Some people argue that it would actually help in having or making the actual relationships with people better because
Hmm.
it sort
True.
of put them in practice of uh, better conversations and all. But over the time, if it is rather going to make things a little more unrealistic as well, I don't know. I'm not
Yeah,
the expert to comment on it, but I guess time would tell, and
yeah.
let's hope for the best on that. Talking about the fears, so what are the most common fears you have seen in school leaders or the leadership when it comes to the implementation of AI?
Well, I would say probably the unknown always is
Mhm.
a fear. You know, not
Right,
sure what I'm expecting. That's why I encourage dipping your toe in,
right,
learning yourself, understanding how it can work with a simple email response. I can't tell you how much I use AI on a daily basis for my own personal work, right? Just in responding to emails. I'll just, that's a great way to start, and or to refine something that I want to put into a report, to summarize information. Research, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's not always accurate. I do try to, if it's
right,
something that is a little more specialized, I triangulate my research. I go to Google. I mean, Google has got some incorrect uh, avenues too. So,
mhm,
you've got to look at trusted sources to verify, but it's definitely a way to get started to allay those fears that, okay, this tool can really help. I mean, I remember when we were talking about calculators being
right,
a problem, right? And word
right,
processors. We're never going to know how to spell or,
yeah,
to use multiplication. But if we learn to use it, I think those fears start to alive. But then I think another is misuse, um, and for disinformation. Trying to teach people how to use it for good, and also to keep data privacy as a priority. That could be a real issue. If people are putting in names, addresses, student identification, with HIPAA, it's critical to keep
absolutely.
learning those. But I think that's the main fear. How to make sure that we're keeping those guardrails up. But we start with a conversation and we promote that. And I think sustainable practices are definitely an opportunity to help with that.
Right. So if I summarize and if I
Mhm.
compare the two fears, one from teachers and one from school leaders, teachers sometimes they're more worried about losing the job to an AI bot or
Mhm.
agent, versus school leaders are more concerned about things that they don't know or they don't have absolute control over. So it's more about not knowing something or losing the control.
Sure.
Um, and again, I agree that one should always start with small steps, but that is for the school leaders to start on a personal level, what changes do they need to make in the organization to be more adaptive towards AI in education?
Right. Well, I think you've got to start with a group of people who are willing to look at it together with the leader, right? Teachers who are already using it or are interested in using it have to plan to meet together and make
Right,
a systemic plan to roll it out. And like with any new initiative, we face a new one probably every year, and that is just to be able to discuss where we're going to use it, what grade levels. I was working with a school recently, and they started in high school, and they used it essentially just for standalone stations in the classroom, so that they would have students go there for personalization activities. And that was a very small department in one high school, and
right,
they used that as a case to talk with other departments and just rolled it out slowly. That it depends so much on the culture of your campus as to
right,
how these things are going to be accepted. And that's what I write a lot about in the book. And that is letting AI help you also nurture the culture of your school to a level of trust with each other, improving communication, improving decision making, and giving that feel of the class of the school interacting as a safe place, and also as a way to improve what you're doing without adding more to your plate. The idea that we, like I mentioned earlier, the time consuming tasks that we have just as part of our job can greatly be reduced by using AI. So if a school teacher knows they can start leaving on time because they've already gotten all of their work,
right,
they need for that day because AI helped them. Okay, check. I like this idea.
right, right, right.
And so that's the way I would work at it systemically.
Absolutely. And yes, I guess every teacher would love to see those days when they don't have to do anything related to their classrooms outside of the classroom, or
Exactly.
at their
Yes,
home.
they deserve a life.
Yeah. It's a misconception that for teachers, it is. I mean, their hours are school hours. Is they have to do a lot outside of those hours. So yeah, an absolute pain point, and a lot of teachers would love to have their workload reduced. Um, when
And principals too, school leaders as well, right?
oh,
I
right,
mean,
right, yeah,
they're doing the same overtime, and that is an epidemic. I don't know if it's in other countries, but in the States, we have quite a bit of discussion around burnout and how many people are leaving the profession
right.
because of the stressors, right? And if we
Because
can
global,
alleviate, yeah, wellness
yeah,
is a part of my life now. I was an educator, like I said, so many decades, but now I've transitioned to consulting on wellness in education because we have to have a sustainable space. And that's why I thought, okay, AI may not be the only answer, but it is
yeah,
definitely one of them. And we've got to access and leverage it to give us our personal individual well-being as well as a collective. And I think that it can improve processes in the school so that it can really fine tune those processes and give us a better. Let me give you an example. Like there is always, it's always a good idea for a team, whether it's a grade level in elementary or it's a department in a junior high, in a middle school or high school. We're going to meet together and talk about particular students related to either instruction or their discipline or behavior, right? You're going to have these meetings to really help understand the situation, how to navigate it through, and so that they can be successful. Well, AI can really give those teachers tools to speed up the process. And like you can give the prompt to help you give suggestions on how to personalize or how to um, give, I guess, strategies for the teacher or for the parent in a parent communication, because a lot of times it's what the parent can also add to the piece, and use those suggestions that AI offers to move forward with the next step in the plan.
Right.
Because, and you know what, I don't know if this is true of everybody, but we had a 1 hour planning period during the school day, sorry. And you have just that one 45 minutes to an hour to get everything done, and then you've got to do everything else after school. And we would have meetings frequently after school, and you are exhausted, right?
Right.
Paralyzed,
Right.
right?
Right.
Coming up with these ideas is a really exhausting process, and I think that's why I just looked at it. Okay, these ideas AI's given me, I guess I know I could have come up with them, but it would have taken me a fresh start,
So much time.
So,
Right. Yeah.
yes, and if I could maybe do this on a day that I didn't have to work all day long, and then come and meet it on it, it's just a relief to know that I have options to consider, and I can have it then write up a note, write up a summary of the meeting,
Right.
even that kind of time constraint is not going to be so bad. Yeah, that's an example.
No, it's a wonderful example. So, what would you tell school leaders who don't believe in AI in education? That it's a buzzword and it's going to die down soon.
Yeah, that is definitely what I'm hearing in a few corners, and I think that's true of a lot of different industries, not just education. Right? We're wondering how this is going to impact us, and I'm not an expert, Mo, on forecasting, but I have been reading many experts who have, and from what I have read, it's going to be very it's going to shift the way the world works. And I mean,
Right.
it's already making such incremental steps. I mean, we see it. Almost every product I use has now got it integrated, right? I use Canva, it's there. I use Facebook, it's there. I use the Google space,
Right.
like Gemini has integrated it into everything. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
can I help you? It is not going to stop. And the trend is something that will fade. And I think we've got to be very serious about how this is going to impact education, because our voices need to be in the mix. And you were right about that. It is definitely something experts who have talked about AI for a long time are discussing. But if we don't get into the conversation, things will be done to us. And we need to have a say in how AI is implemented in classrooms and in schools. And parents need to be involved too. So, yeah, I say, just like you did with TED Talks, listen to some of those speakers, research, get on AI and ask them, ask AI to tell you, is this a trend? It will give you resources to read and to find out more about where we're headed.
Absolutely. So, if there is one thing you would suggest school leaders should start today, set their course correct and in the right direction, what would that be?
It's I think something I'll just reinforce that I've already said, and that is to step in and try it. If you're not already trying how to use AI with Gemini by Google or ChatGPT by OpenAI, Claude's another one that's popular. Those are the three that I've experimented with. You will feel more comfortable about moving forward, right? Or research maybe classroom examples that are out there, and keep this conversation going with other educators. Have this space for questions, for dialogue, for co-creating these norms that we want to have in our education spaces, and look to communities online that are discussing this. Podcasts like yours, right? Our next steps are that we've got to work together to figure it out, and then move forward with what we know.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Vickie. And it's a pleasure to have you today in the podcast and to have this conversation with you. Now, just before we end, if you could share briefly about your book and how can people access your book, whoever
Thank
is
you.
interested in reading.
Right, right. AI for School Leaders is published by ISTE, the International Society for Technology Education, and they have a website that you can put in your show notes. But if you just Google AI for School Leaders by Vickie Echols, it'll pop up. Amazon has it as well, and it's a book that has chapters on how to get started, how to write prompts. Prompt engineering is a new career. People are getting paid to write prompts. That's an example, right?
And the earlier people will start doing, the better their chances to make some money out of it.
There you go. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I go into the safety features, staying smart with AI, and then I go into the 5 categories that I mentioned earlier: that collaborative decision making, trust, professional learning, data management, and family communication engagement. So I feel like those samples will give people a way to, just, you can get the digital version and then just copy my prompt and pop it into an AI and see what it gives you, right? Just experiment and then alter it and have a conversation. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Vickie Echols, and would love to communicate. That's how we met. I was really glad you reached out.
Yes. LinkedIn is very, very powerful, and I would definitely second Vickie on that. I guess when it comes to technology and AI in education, being active on LinkedIn is another thing teachers should start doing straight away. I guess teachers are not using LinkedIn optimally at this point in time.
I agree. It's better than most of the other social platforms.
Right.
It's much more professional. And they have specialized groups. So I've joined several on AI, which I've really learned a lot. That community is good. Yeah, it's a very professional, but also informative place to meet nice people.
Absolutely. Yes. And again, as you said, Vickie, this podcast was possible because of that network, and that was the beauty of it. So thank you very much, Vickie, for being in today's episode. It was absolutely phenomenal and full of learning for my own self. And I'm very sure that our viewers, our listeners, they also had not only a great time, but also a lot of learning. And I'm sure they're going to follow what you said, that start somewhere. Start with something small, but just implement AI. Just taste it. Just experience it a little bit.
Exactly. I hope that people will comment on your LinkedIn post. I'm sure you're going to put a link up, and we'd love to hear some feedback because I'm learning too. That's just the best way to learn. Yeah, with
absolutely. Others. And we would also put Vickie's books links and her LinkedIn profile link in the description of this podcast video, so you could follow her and you could download the book. With this, once again, Vickie, thank you so much. Thank you. All of our listeners. And I will see you in the next episode.
Okay.